All right, so welcome everyone. I see that there are some new names on here. My name is Anita Thompson of Art Venture Workshops, and I teach art workshops for all ages, both virtually and in person for the libraries mostly. Um, and it's my pleasure this evening to be here through the Free Library of New Hope and Solebury. The Friends of the Library have sponsored this program, and I am so grateful. I'm also grateful that everyone continues to show up. Like I mentioned, we had 40 people that signed up for this with 20 to 25 on the wait list. So I wasn't sure how many people would show, but since this is being recorded, I will be sure to send the recording to Sam Farrow, the director of the library, and then he will send it out to all of you so that you can either do it over or share it or if you just want to watch it. I'm also going to have it on my YouTube channel as well. So what we need first is obviously a pencil. We're going to be sketching in the building, both buildings here. We've got a small sort of one over here on the left, and then one on the right here. This is taken from an old photograph of my aunt who went to Greece probably 30 years ago. So thank her for this photo. And we're going to get started with our basic shapes. So we're going to start over here on the left side, and we're going to go down from the top of our canvas. And we're basically going to go toward this area. So if we go down maybe about right here, and make sure you can see that this is the other canvas here. And we're going to start with the shape of the building. And so I'm going to kind of go down a bit. And once you get that shape down, you also then want to make sure that you start to also just draw in a little bit of the beach area until we then are going to draw in the second building. So we're going to be working with a little bit of perspective this evening, which I don't know if we've ever really done in some of my art classes. Maybe a little bit we have actually. But as far as buildings are concerned, we're going to do more of these in the fall. I'm working on fall programming now, and so we'll be working on more buildings, I have more photographs of buildings in different countries and really neat stuff like that. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, stay tuned. Anyway, what we have here, this is the start of the beach area, right? The sand area. And then we're going to start with our building. And so if I take my pencil and I'm looking at it as if like here's the sand, right? And so with my pencil, it's straight. And then if I look at the angles of the building and I put my pencil near it, you can see that this is coming towards us. And so we're going to start a general shape of that. And then we look over here and there's a little bit of a bend, a little bit straight. And then it goes back again. And then basically it's going to come out like this. So this is basically sort of the bottom area of our building. And then you can start to fill it in. And I like to start off probably right here. And this is the line for this side of the building. So right here is this angle of the building. And we're going to start off with the building here on the right first. So with the building on the right, we're going to go up higher. So if we also look at the building over here on the left, it's actually not a building. It's really sort of a fence area, like a thick fence. If we look at this in relation to this, and again, I'm going to use my pencil to show you how high the building is over here. So here is sort of the top of this part, and you can see that this building is higher, right? So you kind of want to just, take a look at this and say, okay, well, this is here. This line has to go up higher. We have a little bit of a detail happening there. It's going to go straight, an indent, and then it's going to go across. Now, we're going to come back to this part of the building. We're not going to do the details yet with the one on the right, because we then come to this part of the building and we are going to make the roof area. So basically, what we're doing is we're going to make the roof part. Oops, I have to make this a little bit lower in this area. And then we're going to make it a little bit longer. Let me erase this part so you can see. And actually, I apologize. This is this part of the building. I'm sorry. I just realized I told you the wrong part. This is the right side of the building. We're now going to go over here and where it's going to slant a bit. This is the roof area part. And then we start to create the angles for this section like so. So it's going to look like this. And I'm going to go in a lot closer now so that you can see. Sorry for my adjusting. There we go. So basically, this is the top of this building. We haven't added the roof area, the thin roof area on yet. But when you're done, you can. And that's going to look like this. Just going to let everyone catch up. And then we're going to hop on over to the right side of the building here. And we're going to come over to this area. And basically what's going to happen is we're going to draw in the windows and also a little bit of this side. So we're going to come down here. And first, we're going to draw the doorway. And it's going to look a little slanted because of the angle, like so. And we have a bush that's happening to the right of it that you can sort of draw in the shape and erase the bottom part of the building. And then we are also going to then come over and create the window up top as well. So basically, we're going to make one more adjustment here to the bottom part of this building because we need the building to come out a little more and look three-dimensional. So here at the bottom, we create this little, I'm going to go even closer here. We're looking at the doorway, the bottom of the doorway here. We're going to make a line outward, and then we're going to make a shape to look like this so that now it looks like your door is more three-dimensional. Like so. And then we're going to make the building a little more outward here to go like this. And then we'll come back up top to create the window. So we have the window up here. And again, we're going to slant the bottom line of the window. The top part of the window is curved. So like this. And then we have to draw and make it look three-dimensional. So we're going to make one more line here on the left. And then we make another partial, what looks like a sort of half circle. And now it looks like the window is three-dimensional. Now, you may have to play with your angles a little bit for it to look right. And then we're going to come on over to the next building and also create a window, but it's really the same shape. But the bottom part of your window is slanted just a little bit. So I'm putting basically my pencil here at the bottom of it just to show you because of the angle. And then when we make the other window, the bottom, you're also going to slant like so. And now it looks like it's in perspective. We're almost done with the drawing part. We also have, some hanging leaves over here on the left side that you can sort of draw in the shape. Let me move my camera up so you can see the original. as well. And then the only other part is going to be the area where the water is. And that's just a line. Now you're going to just kind of lean back, lean yourself back, take a look at everything to make sure that it looks how you want it. And then we're going to get started with our painting. And we start off with the sky first. So again, our colors for the sky are going to be blue and white. And it's helpful to also have, forgot to mention, adding either a paper plate or some sort of place where you can put your paints on so that you're able to mix them. I'm going to move this up. And we're going to be using our flat brush. And basically, we want to get very painterly with this painting. So what I mean by that is, using strokes that are, like circular strokes, more paint than maybe what you're used to. Bit of an impressionistic sky, if you will. And so we're going to start off and mix blue and add some white to that. But we want more of a darker blue at first. So what I like to do is on my palette, I'm kind of going to start to make a few blues by adding white to each one in just a little bit. So you can kind of see that I've sort of made a gradient right now. And then I'm going to make a really light blue right here. Now, depending on the size of your flat brush, at least for the sky, it should be okay. The size of my flat brush is a 10, but it's by Artist Loft, just the generic, sort of a generic paintbrush from Michaels. But it's a smaller one, a smaller flat brush. It's not gigantic because we have a small space to do. So I'm going to start off with some blue on my brush, just plain blue. And I'm going to start off here on the left. And what we're going to do is we're then going to start adding in these other lighter colors, and we're going to really swirl them into each other. But first, since the sky over here on the left is a little darker, we're going to start off with our blue, going right up against the curve of that building. And I'm going to start kind of going in circles with my brush across the top of the canvas. And then I'm going to start adding the second lighter blue. And I'm going to mix it a little better on my palette than I did originally. Just going to mix that in. Oops. And then I'm going to start adding that color and sort of blending it a little bit, but I'm going around in circles while the paint is wet so that we kind of get this kind of cloudy look to it. Oh, let me put my painting down here a little more. There we go. So depending on how light you want your sky, I really liked my sky very light. I'm going to start to add more white. And again, the paint should be white or wet, sorry. And I'm going to also start to go closer to the line where the ocean is. And you may want to kind of bounce between your two brushes. So here I've got my finer detail brush here. And you may want to use that to go in the sky right against your buildings. So this is a little more of a lighter blue. And so I'm just going to kind of paint that in along the edge where my buildings are, where this building is. And continue outlining right against the building. You can see that the sky kind of starts to get lighter around this area. Going to be adding a little more white. Okay, and so we have a range of blues now on here, which is kind of nice. And then again, you can start kind of swirling around. Now, if it's getting dry on you, your paint, you can add, I just dipped my paintbrush in a little bit of water and then applied it on the canvas. You can do that. So now I just added more white over here on the right side, the sky. And again, your sky doesn't have to look exactly like mine. You can choose that maybe, you want it to be a little bit darker of a blue or even a little bit lighter. I'm lightening mine up just a little bit here as it's starting to dry. And then we add clouds when the first layer is a little bit dry. I even added a little bit of some very light green over here. But it was green with white mixed in. So actually a little bit of green, white, and blue. So I just did that right here. So I'm going to just show you that color. I just went on the edge of my paintbrush. I took a little bit of my green. Then I went over here where it's blue and white combined. And I just started to swirl in a little of that green. And you get a little more of sort of a greenish blue. Now, again, you don't have to, but I like that variation in color up here at the top of the sky. So if you look, it's now a little bit different of a color. And it's just a little bit of that green. And I'm just going to kind of swirl it in. I'm going to add a little more white as well. And I kind of like my brush strokes to be showing. Very painterly. Like Renoir or any impressionistic painting. So I'm just taking little dabs. And my paint is starting to dry a little bit. But it's still slightly wet. And then I'm going to go in with some more white on the tip of my brush toward where the water is. Just because I like it to be a little lighter over there. And when you're ready, you can start to add in some clouds as well. So the clouds are basically a bit of white on the tip of my brush. And this is the flat brush still. I'm sort of kind of tapping them and also kind of going a little bit around with them. So again, I'm waiting, adding a little white. So clouds have a combination of, there's white, but then there's, you can still see the sky in them. So there's a little bit areas that are a little darker. They're also not as round as you think. There's more sort of, going a little bit across. It's a little more of a little bit of some clouds going in there. Gonna add a little more white to this area. And just when you're happy with your, with your sky, I'm gonna add just a little more green in the left top of the corner, greenish blue. And a little bit along the right so that it kind of mixes in between. So I just had a little bit more of like the greenish blue there. I'm just gonna kind of show it to you up close. And you want to make sure that you get the entire sky here covered before we, continue with some of this. And then as the sky is drying, sometimes you might want to go back and just add a little more detail. I kind of like to do that. I'm adding a little more white just to give it more of a cloudy look. As it's drying, I'm adding a little more white to the edges of the clouds too. So basically, if you think of the clouds as sort of being puffy, the curved puffy part, I kind of like to add a little bit of white around that. You want to see some really cool clouds. There is, a really amazing cloud artist. I may have mentioned her before. Her name is Kelly Money, and clouds are just amazing. And she is right in New Hope, I believe. New Hope or Sulbury. So now I'm just taking some of that color and just kind of tapping it along to get top of my sky to get a really nice dreamy looking sky. And I'm just going to add a little more white right towards the edge of the water before we start to then finally go into the water. Because that's our next step, is to then start to paint the little slice of water that's happening. And so with our next section, we start to add the blue. And it's really, first it's blue as a base, and then it gets darker and lighter at the top. So I'm still using the same paintbrush, but probably going to switch over again, as I mentioned, depending on how tiny your paintbrush is, how good you are with, trying to kind of angle it in these small spaces. You may want to switch to your detail brush. So I'm doing it right up until this point and then switching to my detail brush here. Sorry, I'm just washing off some of the lighter colors for now. So going up against the next building here, sort of outlining it a little bit. We start to apply kind of that medium blue. Get my other paintbrush in the water for now. And switch now to the detail brush. And then get lighter as it goes more towards the ocean. And so that means mixing blue and white. Kind of get a lightish blue. And start to mix that in. And work towards the sky here. Get lighter. So adding more white as you continue to go towards the sky. And then we've got a little bit of medium blue to break up the sky and the line between the sky and the ocean here. And your strokes want to start to kind of go from left to right in order to get that water feel. And as you're going down towards the bottom part of the water, towards the beach area, you want to start getting darker by adding black to your blue. So I'm going to dip the tip of my paintbrush now into the black and the blue. So you can get sort of a grayish blue color and then also make it even darker, which is what we're going to go for as it gets closer toward the beach area, the sand area. I should really say the sand area. It's not really a beach, but it just reminds me of a beach. I have not been to Greece yet, but it is on my list. Of course, it's a very long list. So not sure when I'm going to get there. So here is the black with the blue. And then this is black with more blue and just a little bit of white. So it kind of looks like a grayish blue. So the next step is now coming to the left side here of the water and start to paint some of that darkish. And it looks black right now. It looks very dark. And I'm going to paint a little bit on, skip a little bit, and kind of make some lines in the water. And then I'm going to start to add more, sort of more of the blue, the regular blue. So I'm going to wash off my brush because I now want to kind of combine, or I should say, almost shade those colors. So I'm going to I just dipped the tip of my brush in with the blue, regular blue, and now I'm going to almost make like a gradient so that it's not so dark. I may have to wait until it's a little drier because it's still coming out a little dark, which means I probably used a little too much paint. And I'm now taking the very tip of my brush here to make little kind of wavy lines for the water. And I'm even going to start to now make the line that separates the sky from the ocean here. But again, this is still a little too dark for me. So I will wait just about maybe 2 minutes. Could start to add some white in using the tip of my brush again. I haven't washed off my brush. I still kind of want some of that color on here. So actually it did kind of work. I'm starting off right here and making really tiny lines, sweeping lines with the tip of my brush. And I added white to the tip, and there's still a little bit of that sort of grayish blue on there. I'm going to go in really close now. So now I'm going in to create the detail in the waves. And I know it's tiny, but I go in and I make really light, sort of fragmented lines that start to also come towards us. And you may want to add some more blue. And I'm now starting to paint on top of sort of the dark area that I created here on the left using the blue. I want to kind of mix it in a little bit, so I might even add a little bit of white on my palette so that it kind of becomes like a grayish dark blue. And again, I keep kind of going back and doing little tips of white, and I kind of bounce the paintbrush very lightly on the sections to create. I'm just going to show this up close. I just kind of, bounce those sections a little bit using my paintbrush. And while that's wet, I'm also going to just go back to the part in the distance here and to make that line just a little bit darker blue. Oops. Just there in the distance. Add a little more white. It all depends how you want your water to look. Maybe you're happy with it. I think I'm okay with my water. You want to make sure to, get to the point where you are definitely up against your building. Even if you go into your building a little bit more, you want to make sure you get to it so that you can start the beach area. Which we are not doing the beach yet because we're going to jump to our buildings, which is going to be the next one over here on the left. And so I do the same thing. I jump between the two brushes, depending on what you're most comfortable with. I always start off with my flat brush. So now you want to make sure to wet those, rinse those off. If you want to get some new water at this point, we've used a lot of blue, you can. I like to kind of freshen my water. For some reason, when I use blue, always feel like when I use darker colors, I have to freshen my water. I don't really know if that's true, but I do it anyway. So I'm going to get some fresh water right next door here, right back. All right. Also took the opportunity to rinse out my brushes. Camera up a little bit. So now I've got clean water, clean brushes. Oh, let me lift it up so you can actually see my clean water here. There we go. And we're now going to move on to the building here on the left. Like I mentioned, I like to use both brushes for this painting, just depending. So I'm going to start off basically with the flat brush. And the color that we're going to do is going to be a gray. And basically, I'm just going to show this up close. It's going to be gray. There's going to be a little bit of some brownish here at the bottom. It gets gray and then a little whiter. So we're going to start off with the white, actually. at the top first. And then after, we will paint our the greenery, not right away, because we're going to be painting the sand area first, because we want the greenery to be falling on the sand. But so the colors, we want to start off with our white. Oops, looks like I have some blue in my white here. So we're going to start, oh, yep, that is not the right color. You want white, not bluish white. I had a little bit too much. I had some blue mixed in with my white because I was sort of dabbing, but you want white. So I know that your canvas is white, but you want paint white. And this is where, like I said, you probably want to go back and forth using your smaller brush. So we start off painting the top part white, and then we go down into the rest of the building. So that whole section, we want a coating of white. And you want to also make sure to create the top part of your building. I had to extend mine a little bit. So as you can see, I switched to my detail brush to kind of do around the edges, or to stay within the border of the building. Now, once you have that white color, you're going to then start to mix it with some of your black. And you can do that on the edge of the black you had before, but you want to make it an incredibly light gray, even lighter than this. So an incredibly light gray, of which you're going to start to apply to the middle of your building and going downward, because our building gets darker as it goes toward the bottom. And when you are finished with that, you're going to apply a teeny bit of your golden brown to the bottom part of your building. And you can see how it starts to kind of mesh with the gray. And that's what you want. And then you want to kind of almost make a gradient in a way by mixing it, adding a little bit of, what I do is I have still the white that is on my flat brush from when we added the white at the top of the building. I kept that on my brush. I switched to my round brush, added the gray and the brown, the light brown at the bottom. And now I've picked up my brush again, the flat brush with the white, and I'm now using that to blend. I'm going to kind of blend the edge of where the white and the gray meet. And the same down at the bottom here of the building. You're very lightly kind of tapping it. There should not be a whole lot of paint on your brush. If there is, just kind of swipe it on your paper towel. And then while the paint is still wet, you can kind of go into the edge of a little more gray using your flat brush. And maybe just add some little bit of darker grayish again at the bottom while it's still wet so that you get a little more of sort of a muddy gray, if you will. Kind of want to get that feeling of, almost like white stucco. And it's a little bit kind of, there's some gray in it. And then I like to go back and add a little more white on top again. But again, I sort of dot it on using my flat brush. So it kind of has almost like a texture. I even add, I kind of wash off my small brush. And then I add a very, very tiny bit of like the baby blue, the really light blue. And that's starting to dry over here on top, just to kind of give it a little more texture. So that's a little bit of light blue. I'm just going to kind of show you that. It's hard to tell because it's still wet. But we're going to then go to the other building, meaning this whole area on the right. And we're going to do the same thing, bouncing back and forth between our brushes. The first being that this part is going to be white. So we're going to get into our white again. This time I'm going to start with the round brush. And again, it just depends on your comfort level, how small your brush is. You may feel better with your flat brush using it first. But we're going to dip in again into our white. And we're going to paint over the white canvas. You're going to make sure that your lines for the building are, sort of crisp-like, right? You want them to make sure that it looks like the angles of the building as you're working towards the edge. I have to clean up some of my lines. We're going to be adding the roof on with a thin layer of paint. So you're going to fill that one side with white paint, going around the windows, obviously, because those are going to be blue. And then we're going to be painting one more angle because I realized I had you guys stop at the wrong angle. I was drawing it. I apologize for that. So what we're going to do is make sure that this next section is going to be a different color from when the angle starts here. And so remember the color that we just did, that sort of grayish, very light gray. We're going to now use that color for the next section. So again, if you want, you can switch on over to your flat brush. So again, remember that gray that we used, that very light gray. You may have to add a little bit of water. I do. My paints are very dry for some reason. All right, so we've got this light gray. And we're going to create sort of a line on the right of the white. Like so. We're going to go back and create, make a darker line to separate, but for now, it's going to be like this. And when you are finished with that part, you're going to create a little bit of a darker line using dark gray. So I'm going to just mix up a little more darker gray for now. We'll eventually get over there and use a little bit more of black too, but basically creating a line. Oops, I went a little too far. This is with dark gray. And because I told you the wrong angle, you may have to paint in some of your sky a little more. Sorry about that. I don't think I was paying as much of attention as I was doing the angles. So I apologize. And so basically, you want to take that dark gray and you're kind of going to go around the border of your building and even outlining the bottom area as well for now. So that's going to look like this. And you can paint in a little more, again, of your sky. And we're going to then start to add the top of our roof on afterward. But first, we're going to go back into the building here on the left and add a little bit of the white and the brown, just like we did on the other side. So I took the tip of my brush and I added just a little bit of the golden brown. I'm going to zoom in because it's a very faint color on Zoom. So basically what I did was I went in with my round brush. That's a little too much, but I'm going to bring it down mostly on the middle and left side of the building because I want to add some more white to this to make it lighter. And in the meantime, I'm going to use that color to start to create the roof. So again, this is that golden brown. I want to make the roof a little bit higher here. I like to add just a little bit of the golden brown at the bottom part of this building. But then we're going to get back into, there should be some dark gray happening along the edge because that is going to separate our building sides. And I go and I take, I still use what's on my brush with the brown. And I'm starting to go along the edge. Need a little more water here. To make the hard line of that building. And then I'm going to take the flat brush that, let's see, it's got a little bit of the gray on it. And I'm going to start to smooth out the colors together. Leaving that edge, the hard edge, not as hard as it was. Now again, if you are much better with your thinner brush, you can do that. But while you're at it, and if you still have some of that brownish gray left on your flatter brush, you're going to go to the other building and you're going to add it to that building along with some white. So we have a combination of sort of muddy colors here, which is what we want. Mostly white, like you can see that it's mostly white up here. I'm going to make this a little taller. But there is some of that gray on my brush from earlier. And I keep adding little parts of white mixed in on the tip of my brush here. And I'm just kind of painting it in to fill up the space of the building. And then we're going to add some light blue. Also making sure that as you're getting to the bottom part of the building, we created that dark color of, it's a very dark gray. It almost looks black. You want to kind of have a little bit of that showing, but paint like the whitish gray on top of it so that there's a sliver of it showing, if that makes sense. Like this. Oh, I gotta straighten out my line here. So this is where you really want to pay attention now to the straightness of your lines so that it doesn't look like your building is kind of warping. Although they are supposed to be old buildings, so if you want it to warp, I think that's okay. But here you should have sort of a little bit of a grayish, sort of grayish building. And at the same time, your other building should be starting to dry. And you can go back in and lighten it up with a little bit of white on the brownish on the right side so that it looks like, you know, there's a little bit of sun hitting there. And we're also going to hit it with a little pop of baby blue again. Do that right now. So what I mean, the baby blue can be right in with, mix up a little here. I like to add a little bit of the blue with the gray against the edge of the building here. That's a little bit too much blue. I'm going to lighten it up a little bit, but it doesn't look too bad. You can also add some of that light blue right underneath the line of your roof on this side of the building because it's going to make it look like, and I'm pointing to the blue that I just added underneath the roof. It's going to make it look a bit like there's a shadow from the roof that's kind of hanging over. You can also add a little bit of that blue at the bottom of that building. Again, this is a little too much blue, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to add some white in there. We are going to use this blue for around the left side of our doorway as well. So again, this is sort of that light blue. You're going to add that to the left side of the doorway and also the left side of your window up top. Rinse that out because I need to add a little bit more of whitish gray because this blue is a little too stark on the building. So again, I'm adding back in a little bit of gray. So that it's not as pronounced. I'm going to do the same on this side. Yep, just a little bit. And then we're going to get into making the outside of the windows here look a little more three-dimensional by starting off with this window, how we added that light blue around. We're going to add a little bit of white to that window, that half area here. So I added just a little bit of white into it and a little more white at the top. So do you see how it's a little more blue, bluish gray down at the bottom? And we're going to make a ledge at the bottom of it that is white and brown. We're going to paint that edge rather than we didn't draw it. And it's really sort of a line at the bottom of the window, but then we're going to have to add black afterward to make it look like it's a window ledge. So again, what I did was I added that white on top of that baby blue around the left side of this window. Then I went to the bottom part here and added the same color as the roof, sort of that golden brown. But I added a little more white so that it was a light golden brown. And then we're going to start adding the blue inside the windows and the doorway. And that blue is straight from our color, which is more of a darker blue. But we're not going to add a ton because what we're going to do is we're going to start off back onto this window here. We're going to start off the top of the window is this blue. And then we're going to kind of trace around the window inside using this blue, leaving the center part kind of just the canvas for now. The reason being is we're then going to dip into some white a little bit to make a lighter blue area in that section. Like so. And you're going to paint it so that it's sort of blended in, but the top part of the window is a little darker. And we're going to actually add some black to that. I'm going to go really close so that you can see this. So do you see, basically I took that blue and I outlined the window, and then I took some white, just a tiny bit, and I filled in the middle of the window so that it looks like there's some light coming through. And while we have that color, we're going to start doing the next window with that color. It's that sort of lightish blue, but it's not baby blue, but it's a lighter blue. And then we're going to get darker at the top of the window. But while we have this on our brush, fill in that window and then also the door. I need a little more water here. So this is that same blue. But this time we're painting both shapes, that blue. Then we're going to add some white, but I like to mix the white with the blue on my palette because it's such a tiny space. And then we add a little bit lighter, but still letting some of the dark at the top of the window show, because we're then going to grab black and mix it on our palette with the blue. So you kind of get a grayish, that grayish blue. I'm going to show that too. So I just mixed. I kept that color on my brush. I added some black so that now it's a gray. It's a dark gray, like a charcoal gray. And now we're going to go to the top of the window and we're going to kind of outline. And we're going to do the same with the other window, but on the left side. Like that. We can outline just a tiny bit on the right side, like so. And we're going to use this gray to also come back over to this top window. And we're going to add just a little bit of some of that darker gray. Here on the left side of the curve, and then we're going to also outline on the left side the ledge. And around the window. You can add a little bit of dark on the top part of the doorway as well. But then you want to make sure to add a little more light blue back in so that it looks muted. So see what I did here? I added the dark gray, but then I went back and I added a little more of the lighter gray. And we are coming upon the finishing sections here of this painting. The other thing that we want to do is we want to add a little bit of grayish blue right underneath here, right underneath this window ledge. So while we have that sort of bluish, the light blue on our brush, and go in. That's a little too dark, so I'm going to grab sort of the light gray on top of it. Or if you still have your bigger brush, meaning your flat brush with some white on it, you can kind of go in and sort of blend it out using that. And the last part is we're going to add a little bit of some medium gray to the top part of the roof along the edge of this building too. So two things that you're doing. You're kind of using a little bit of that grayish blue right underneath your window ledge. And then you're also going to go along the top part of the building with that. And then we're finally going to go here along the edge of the building, and we're going to use our brown again. So this is where you want to now grab your flat brush. And you're going to use your brown to go on the edge of your sand and going around your building. And the next building. And then you're going to use that brown. You're going to mix it with white, and you're going to now start to add your sand. So basically, you're adding white Oh, and let me get some more. I have to get some more water. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got some water. All right, so now you want to have it that sandy color. You're going to keep adding white in spots like so. So that basically what happens is you're going to have a combination of white mixed in with the sand, and you're going to also use some light blue as well. So here in the left bottom corner, you're going to make it lighter using your white. And you want to remember that there's a shadow that's going to come out in this area under the building. So you're going to leave that section a little darker. You're going to make sure as you're painting that you are going against the building with your brush. And then while you have it sort of that milky brown, that's when you're going to go in. You're going to mix up some of that light blue again, and you can even add a little bit of green. And you're going to start adding it in spots around. And when you're ready, basically your shadow is going to be that light brown with on top the blue, the baby blue painted right on top of it. So I know that's a lot. So basically this is your light brown. You paint that first, and then you paint some of that baby blue on top. And then you lighten up where you want using white. So maybe on top of the blues. And again, you're making these sort of strokes that are, you're kind of like going back and forth. as you're painting. And I realize we have one more window to do using that sort of medium blue. Just down here on the right whenever you're ready. And our final part is finally going to be our bushes. And the bushes, when you get to that, are going to be a combination of the green with black for your base color. And basically, so again, this is a combination of green and black to make a very dark green. That's your base color. So that is a base color of, and I know it looks really dark on screen, but that's a green mixed with the black. And when you are ready, you're going to mix some light green in with that color, and you're going to start dotting kind of like in on top of your greenery. I'm going to go really close so you can see. Basically, so I have that green on here. And see, it's getting lighter. And then I haven't washed my brush, and I'm going to add some splotches of white too. Just a little bit, because if not, it will be kind of the whitish. You can also add some green back in. You can get different, different colors of green just by adding those colors. And you might want to let it, sit and dry for a little bit, to go back and add the finishing touches. But this is our summer in Greece painting. And I am so excited to see what everyone's looks like. I know we went over a little bit because we started a little bit later, but I'm going to stop the recording.